I'm Zarina Matcha and you're watching Non-Feminist Gal. One of the things I very much dislike about post-60s radical feminism is the extent to which it has devalued classical femininity and womanhood. Being a girly girl or a feminine woman is something that radical feminism very much looks down upon by calling beauty a patriarchal construct and advocating that women don't shave or pay attention to our looks. YouTubers Mrs. Midwest and Jasmine Theodora have both made videos on being feminine in a feminist world. Although I appreciate both of their videos, their channels are very Christian conservative based, which is an unfortunate problem I have seen with many anti-feminist YouTube channels. This is partly why I started my own channel, to show that liberal-minded women can also be non-feminists. By the way, if you're interested in checking out another liberal, sex-positive, non-feminist YouTuber, then I highly recommend Greta Aurora. She is wonderful, smart, and beautiful. I am a fan of lipstick feminism, which I don't really view as feminism, as for me this is just an extension of liberalism. Liberal feminism in the 90s and early 2000s espoused these sorts of ideals as a softer alternative to the more misandric 60s to 80s feminism. One of my favourite TV shows growing up was Totally Spies, a show about three tough, badass teenage girls who are spies and go on dangerous adventures, yet all three of them are very feminine, very girly, love boys and shopping and makeup, and I really loved this as a young girl and still occasionally do now. Nowadays, popular TV heroines like Katniss Everdeen or Merida from Brave are celebrated as the ideal feminist role models, yet they embody more masculine traits that are divorced from classic femininity. This also shows in how many feminists criticize the earlier Disney princesses Cinderella, Snow White, and Sleeping Beauty, as they embody very classically feminine behaviour that feminism has devalued. Just to be clear, I have nothing against tomboys or being a tomboy. I just think it's a shame that feminism has promoted being tomboyish as more empowering for women, to be more like a man and embody more classically masculine traits, to pursue male-dominated professions like law, politics, engineering, and science. These are cited as more empowering for women than traditionally feminine pursuits like nursing, teaching, psychology, and of course the arts. This is also why feminism constantly pushes for more women in management and CEO positions, yet ignores industries where women have and already are leading the way. Nursing is an industry that has always been very female-dominated, yet instead of celebrating this, feminism often looks down on this. Fun fact, female porn stars actually earn more than male porn stars. Growing up, I felt a lot of pressure to be more interested in maths and science, even though I've always been better at English and humanities-based subjects. This isn't to say that I was discouraged in any way. I've always had a lot of academic support, both in my school and from my parents, but I do think that there's become a cultural tendency to belittle arts and humanities, which are traditionally more preferred by women. And I definitely think that a lot of this comes from feminism, because feminism has pushed for more women in male-centric professions and thus demeaned more female-centric professions. Of course, there's nothing wrong with a woman being an engineer, a mechanic, a CEO, a lawyer, a politician, and so on. But I don't think that any woman should feel pressured into doing these roles just to fulfill some feminist quota. It's very sad that feminism generally doesn't respect women's choices when they go against what feminism thinks is best for women. This shows in how feminism has devalued being a housewife or a stay-at-home mother as a suitable life path for women. Feminism wants women to be more represented in politics, yet doesn't realise that most women don't want to take on the responsibilities that come with being in high political positions of power. And the women who do take on high-powered political positions and who have had the opportunity, such as women like Margaret Thatcher, should be respected based on their own merit and not owe their success to feminism. Ironically, many of the female politicians currently leading the way in Europe, many of whom are right-wing, are not supported by feminism because feminism is rooted in left-wing identity politics. The universe is made up of duality, like yin and yang in Taoism. Masculine and feminine energy are complementary energies that work together. Masculine energy is strong, dominant, and active, and feminine energy is softer, more fluid, and more passive. Each one of us has a mix of these energies, and they are supposed to be complementary. This is where the idea of complementarianism was very popular in post-agrarian, pre-industrial societies such as in medieval England. Contrary to what feminism has told us, women were not oppressed. They simply worked alongside men in complementary gender roles, as opposed to wanting to clash with men or become men. The reason why women are now able to pursue more male-dominated professions is thanks to modern inventions like better domestic appliances, the rise of digital technology, and of course contraception. All of this has given women more time to pursue professions and activities outside the home on a larger scale. This owes nothing to the feminist movement. Women were making waves in the world before feminism. When I talk about feminine energy and tapping into one's femininity, here's what I personally mean overall. Being gentle, soft, sweet, and caring, being emotionally vulnerable, but only when and where necessary, as you don't want to get taken advantage of, being out in nature, meditating, and giving blessings to the earth if you're quite spiritual, being creative and doing creative things like writing, music, art, sewing, cooking, and anything that allows one's creativity to flourish, being sensual and accentuating your beauty without being vulgar. Think of classically feminine beauty icons like Marilyn Monroe, Brigitte Bardot, Rita Hayworth, Audrey Hepburn. They were all very sexy and feminine, but they weren't trashy in the way that Cardi B or Nicki Minaj are, who instead of being sexy and feminine are quite vulgar and crass and not what I would call symbolic of female empowerment. Compare that to a singer like Aaliyah, who was very sexy but also very classy and feminine. I do think that from time to time it's good for women to wear more feminine clothes like dresses, skirts, makeup, jewelry, and so on. I know that I always feel much more feminine when I put lipstick on. Essentially, allowing yourself to be a woman and not trying to be aggressive and dominant like a man. Of course, there are times when women do need to be dominant and tap into our masculine energy as well, such as in the workplace or when needing to take command and control. But overall, I do think that wanting to be gentle and soft and caring is a good thing, but also firm, by the way, not just some fragile wuss who lies down and lets the world destroy her. That's not what I mean. I mean being more compact and having a gentler approach to life, as opposed to being aggressive or taking on more male dominance and assertiveness. I don't think that being unnecessarily aggressive is a good look for women or even for men, and I'm talking as someone who has struggled a lot with anger issues in the past. I do think that feminism has encouraged this bitterness and anger in women rather than teaching us how to manage our emotions, how to remain calm and rational and balanced and level-headed. Feminism doesn't really encourage women to think rationally, which it really should, as women are typically more emotionally volatile than men due to our hormones and brain chemistry, and we would really do well to learn how to better manage our emotions. This is where I think philosophies like Stoicism can be of excellent help to women in helping us to gain level-headedness and emotional balance without losing our femininity. I'm not a fan of the idea of associating femininity with sexual purity or viewing sex as a measure of personal virtue. I despise the Abrahamic idea of a virtuous, chaste woman, which is why I found it tough to agree with Jasmine Theodora's association of femininity with sexual chastity. This is a very Christian idea that as a secular, spiritual, but not religious humanist, I really can't relate to. But equally, I don't think the idea of women becoming vulgar and crass in our approach to sexuality is good either, such as women going on slut walks and the like. There is a balance to be had between being overly chaste and overly scanty. Women can be sexy and sensual without being vulgar, and I do think that sensuality actually enhances our femininity. After all, a woman is made to be a sexual being. Again, think of Marilyn Monroe. Sexy but classy. This is why ancient Hindu goddesses were all about femininity and sensuality and beauty, and they were often naked. Virginity in ancient Greece and Hinduism wasn't viewed as a symbol of purity. It was a symbol of feminine strength and independence from men, but in a pro-female way as opposed to an anti-male feminist way. I like the idea of viewing a woman as soft and gentle on the outside, but also strong and firm on the inside. A woman can be both gentle, motherly, and caring, but also sexy and wild when appropriate. Interestingly, men actually behave like this. Men are obviously very sexual beings, but they don't go around acting vulgar, and they still believe with a degree of social etiquette and reservation. Men don't just throw themselves at women on the street, because if they did, women would freak out. Men have to talk to a woman and buy a woman a drink or dinner and actually have some social decency. And I think this is part of our relations of maintaining humanity between the sexes as opposed to vulgarity. Women's sexual liberation didn't mean the women needed to become vulgar and not have any social standards. Being sexy doesn't mean being trashy or utterly demeaning oneself. I do think feminism has made women really lose that sense of feminine grace and elegance. Again, think of the old Hollywood starlets. They weren't sexually chaste and frigid, but they weren't trashy. There's no need for women to become like this. We can still look, act, and behave like women without having to swing too much to either extreme. This is why I'm a fan of social liberalism, as I see it as a middle ground between social conservatism and feminism. I see liberalism as the balance and a way to harmonize human relations. Overall, I don't think wanting to be feminine and be gentle, soft, giggly, sweet, and pursue female-oriented professions is a bad thing at all. And I do reiterate, there is nothing wrong with wanting to be a tomboy or embodying masculine traits either. I myself wouldn't say I'm an uber girly girl, I'm more in the middle. As some things, I'm more masculine, like I'm very purpose-driven and hardworking, but then I'm also quite gentle and soft at times. I just think that everyone should strive for balance. This is something that I am always working towards. Avoiding becoming too angry and bitter and aggressive is good for women if we want to be more feminine and more content overall, rather than shouting and getting all rowdy and bitchy unnecessarily, which feminism unfortunately does tend to inspire in women. What do you think? What do you think it means to be feminine? Do you think it's harder for women to be more feminine nowadays in a world which is very feminist driven? Do you consider yourself more of a tomboy or a girly girl or somewhere in the middle? Let me know below. Thank you for watching.